another part of Asia, but there is absolutely no shortage, is there, of inequalities, injustices from Africa to the Middle East, but specifically and perhaps nowhere more than in occupied Palestine, which is your mandate. It isn't just governments and political leaders who are either unable or unwilling to fulfill some of their legal and moral obligations. It's also major institutions like the United Nations, given the fact that it is the world's foremost peacekeeping body. It has failed repeatedly, as we all know, to secure a ceasefire for Gaza over 2 years. It was blocked by one permanent member at least 6 times. How do you deliver justice for Palestinians, given this reality, and would it require accountability, including from outside actors who have, for the past 2 years, either stood by silently or were complicit, actively fueling Israel's war machine?
Good afternoon, everyone. I would also like to extend my appreciation and gratitude to the Doha Forum, Excellencies, Sheikh Musa. I think that if there is a word that comes to my mind more than any other these days is rapture, is apocalypse. I've often described the situation of Gaza, of Palestine, in fact, as apocalyptic, and I'll get back to it, but the question of rapture is harshly felt inside the international system. Those who behave, those who believe, those who advocate for the application of, and those who have to use international law as a compass to guide politics. And today they are confronted with a reality where the compass works. It's not international law that has a problem, it's politics. It's politics that has completely lost its moral compass. And is it new? No, it's not new. Palestine bears testament to all injustices that other parts of the world, like Somalia, Yemen, and many others of distinguished representatives who are here today speak to. What I think, and also the breaking of the trust into the political system, I'm equally horrified as a lawyer, as a special rapporteur, to see the United Nations, the organizations whose very existence is connected to the never again, to the crimes, to the horrible, abominable crimes that were committed during World War II, to make sure that we do not get there again, that never again is really respected, to preserve peace and stability, premised upon the respect of everyone's dignity and equality. I'm equally horrified, I was saying, to see that, yes, it took 2 years to arrive, to vote, to pass a resolution that included the ceasefire, but also the fact that now the ceasefire has been agreed upon. This is becoming the new tool for Israel to continue the genocide, to continue what the genocide didn't achieve. The ethnic cleansing of Palestine, the total crushing of the Palestinians' right to self-determination. And this is why I say this is a moment that calls for full introspection and realization of how are we making to repair that trust. Because the trust that is at the basis of the social contract that exists at the domestic level in democracies, but also at the international level in the United Nations, is under test today. If you see, for one thing, I'm proud to be a Western person, a European today. It's not just because of the system of values premised upon the respect of international law, the rule of law, or equality before the law. No. It's the young people, the young generation, which in the West has been the first from the United States to Europe to Australia and other places, former colonies, former settler colonial endeavors. They have stood up against the genocide. They have been the first to protest, followed by the workers. And what they have been met with? batons by the police, criminalizations by government, and other forms of repression in the cradle of democracies. So this is why I'm saying Palestine has been an awakening, a wake-up call for all of us. And I often speak, and this is the last remark I wanted to share, of the Palestine effect. This is not the first genocide in human history. This is at least the third genocide, if not the fourth or the fifth, that occurs in my living time, my lifetime. This is the first genocide that awakens global conscience and global response. Palestine is allowing us to see what the law becomes when it's in the hands of power. Palestine is allowing us to see what connects all injustices, what happens to Yemen, to Sudan, to Congo, and including in places where poverty has not been so rooted as it is today for a long time, including in the West. We have a common enemy, and we need to face it, where the politics is at the service of economic interests.
But just to follow up briefly, Francesca, you mentioned that we have the laws, we have the conventions on genocide and everything else. It is the implementation that lacks. I wonder to what extent it is accurate to say that the world has lost its moral compass, or as you've just alluded to now, the genocide in Gaza has actually exposed the level of dishonesty, and let's face it, hypocrisy within the Western world particularly. So to that point, and another one that I want to ask you about very briefly before I move on to our other two speakers, you are the first UN Special Rapporteur to ever have been sanctioned by any state. The United States imposed sanctions on you for simply doing your job, for publishing reports that have taken on corporations and governments that you believe have been complicit in Israel's genocide in Gaza. You refuse to be intimidated. You and I had a conversation a few days ago. You say you will not be intimidated, but surely it must do something to the rule of law and anyone willing to uphold it despite this campaign of intimidation and bullying.
Look,
does it?
What happens to me is what happens to anyone who stands in solidarity, not with the Palestinian people, with justice. Because today, the international, what the United States sanctioning me is telling to the international system is, we don't need you. And this is the culmination of a series of attacks, of a series of aggressions, a smear campaign. Everyone who's been trying to infuse an ounce of respect for international law in the context of the aggression on Gaza has been accused of anti-Semitism, supporting terrorism, from the Pope to the Secretary General, and of course, special rapporteurs among others. So I could speak to what has happened to me, and what I think is so pernicious of this is the tolerance. So you ask me why you do not, why do you continue? Why do you persist? Because what I'm left with is my dignity, and it's my voice. And while no member states have done what I think should be done, getting together, standing together, and standing up against the United States and tell, enough, this is a violation. This is the first UN person who's been sanctioned in 80 years of UN life, and it cannot constitute a precedent. It's illegal. It's against the UN Charter. It's against the Convention on Privileges and Immunities. And so, please, you have to withdraw the sanctions. No member state has done it. It doesn't speak to my courage. It speaks to the broad cowardice that exists in the international community, and I cannot be held accountable for that. But, there is a but. I will not be silenced till I will have breath in my lungs. I will continue to advocate for justice, not as a lawyer, not as the special rapporteur for the occupied Palestinian territory, but as a mother who doesn't want that the brutality that has been unleashed day in and day out with the complacency and the complicity of so many governments, especially from the part of the world I come from, will become the rule. I cannot accept as a mother that this is normalized, and this is why I keep on saying we still have time. What we are using is not something we have inherited from our ancestors. It's something that we are borrowing, and let me be very honest, we are stealing from our children, and this is why I think let's take it as an opportunity to change.
Thank you very much, Francesca. President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, just looking and reflecting on what we just heard.